Hi, I'm Kevin,
And I'm Amanda.
and we are serving up
All that jam.
All That Jam, Quick Hit. Getting Deep with John Spignesi and Scott Murawski.
most definitely. So, all right, let's get into set list. When you're playing live, how do you build a set list out? Do you try to cover all of your 6 albums plus the new stuff coming out?
Be a very long show. No, we use I use Setlist FM sometimes too, just to kind of like see what it is we played recently. I try not to like repeat anything too much. I know Scott's making a face at me because Creek doesn't use set lists, but but yeah, I mean, we try to rotate stuff kind of in and out, and things will, eventually we get to a point too, like we have a couple of covers that I'm like, all right, like this needs to go on the back burner for a little because we kind of played it like over and over.
Right.
Things kind of come in and out.
Right. Certain songs are openers, certain songs are closers in your mind.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, you always want to save your one where you're like screaming and your epic one for the end, because then you don't got to follow it up with anything afterwards.
Right. Yeah, Matt Bush told us that he can only put Saturday Night as the closer for Bobby because he throws his voice out every time. So he can't like open a show with Saturday Night because Weir wouldn't make it through the whole show singing.
Makes
I
sense.
can see that. Yeah, I can see that.
It's crazy. It's crazy. So what's the hit on the album? What do you think's going to be what's the one that you're like, this is us. This is us to the world.
What do you think, Scott?
That's a tough question.
I know.
I mean, I have my favorites, but I don't know if those are the hits. Like I like Mystery Man, I think.
Me too.
But that, part of that is because you came over and we recorded it here first, you know what I mean? So I have this kind of connection to it that way.
Yeah.
But, I don't know. There's a lot of good stuff. Because I'm blanking on all the names now, but some of the horn tunes are very dynamic and energetic, and
yeah, Lift Off, I really like a lot too. We that's the one that Prepare for Lift Off has the horns on it too, and we wrote a part. I don't know if you remember that, Scott. I remember we wrote that slow part in the studio. The song had been kind of just like balls to the walls, like fast, aggressive funk. And of course, while our drummer was in the bathroom, my bass player and I were like kind of messing around, and we ended up coming up with this like slow, dynamic part. And I videotaped the entire process of recording, so I have like. He comes back in and he's like, I don't know how I feel about this. So, which was fine. I mean, honestly, it was communication. I mean, it was effective, and he made his case for it too, and we made ours. We ended up adding it in, and I really like it. Honestly, it's like I feel that if you don't have the contrast to the aggressiveness too, you kind of like it loses its power. I guess to be the way to put it. I don't know if that's the right word to use, but. So.
There you go. So are you going to do an album release show?
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be interesting wrangling everybody together. I think trying to get everybody for that. But I've had a couple of venues already like express interest in it too. I really want to like focus a lot on marketing for this and releasing it properly too, because we started working on this almost a year ago. That was when we had like the first rehearsal session. So. If this gets released and then there's crickets, it's not going to be good. So, I mean, right. There's no rush, and I think that's the good thing about having no label too. There's nobody breathing down our neck. It's like, you need to release this now.
Right. Have you thought about releasing the singles route?
Yeah, we were. We had a session, and actually, what was that last week too? And the engineer and I were talking about that too. Which honestly, we've never tried anything like that. It may not be a bad method.
Right. There's a band called Jim Cotta. They had an album, Bonfires, they put out. It's been a couple years now. It was during quarantine period, but over 10 months, they released one song a month. So people were talking about them every month. And then the 11th month, they released the whole album. So they got a whole year. They milked it for a whole year.
Yeah, Peter Gabriel just did the same thing. Or he was releasing a song every full moon, and he'd release the song, 2 mixes of each song. He'd have 2 mixing engineers, so every song was released twice.
How much of a difference could you hear? Did you listen to them?
I did listen to him. There's definitely a difference. I mean, it's the same song, it's the same recording. It's just somebody else is putting their touches on it. So he was calling them the bright mix and the dark mix. And the dark mix, I don't know who the bright mix engineer was, but the dark mix was Chad Blake, who I'm familiar with. He mixes some of my favorite stuff like Los Lobos and Sheryl Crow, and his mixes are particularly uh trashy is probably the best way I can say it. And so the mixes that he did for Peter Gabriel weren't particularly trashy, but I could definitely tell that his hands were on the board, So
I
yeah,
was going to say vibrant.
vibrant.
Oh, good word. Yeah, I don't know. I think like people's attention span isn't what it used to be. You know what I mean? Like, nobody sits down and listens to a full album anymore. They really don't.
Right. That they don't, and I always laugh that people release singles and there isn't even a B-side anymore.
Right?
You're right.
Seriously.
The B-side was always the best song. In the end. So, do you want to tell me a little about Hoops and Hops?
Yeah, that's a great. Scott could speak to that more than how long have you guys been playing there?
Further back than I can remember.
There's pictures. Funny that there's pictures of me there with pictures of him on the wall behind us.
They took a bunch of those down.
Did they really?
Yeah, like there are some of them I think are in the basement now, hanging on the walls. Like
it wasn't me, I swear.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it's just for me like. It's so funny. You roll in there. You're at 100. Every time I roll there, I'm like, I'm not in the right place. It's such a. I know Simsbury, Connecticut is just such an interesting town to begin with, and you get there, and the people that go to that place are like really, really into it.
Yeah.
At least in my experience, the people like we've gone there, and we could play. I would say 90% originals. And people are more into that than if we were doing any covers. It's just a really good. I think the scene is really strong there too, and it's funny. It's just like the corner of a room in a bar. Might be like one of the few bars I think that we still do, but it's such a great place. I don't ever want to stop playing there. I really don't.
Yeah, and Steve, the owner, is awesome. He just takes good care of the bands and everything. Mm-hmm. So,
and the food's good.
And the food's good. Can't argue with that. Do you play in a cover band also?
I play in a cover band as a tribute to this guy's band, actually.
Oh, nice.
I have a cover band called Something Is Forming, a tribute to Max Creek.
Nice.
And
still waiting for the royalty checks on that one.
They're in the mail. Tax season is here, so yeah, that was so the drummer has he's got a farm up in like Scotland, Connecticut, and I went up there in like 2017 or 2018. He's like, "There's no Creek cover bands," and I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Well, we should do that." And I was like, "Okay." So we ended up, we learned maybe like 20 or 25 songs, played a couple gigs, and now recently we got a new keyboard player, so we're kind of like things are kind of picking up again too, and we're learning more and rehearsing more. And I'm afraid to send him some of the shows. I don't know.
How do you pick 20 to 25 songs out of that catalog?
It's a good question. Well,
I do it every show. Only it's more like 12, actually. 12 songs.
I try to think of the ones that I know how to play that Scott's not going to get mad if he hears, So.
Right. The hits. You got to play the hits, right?
If you did any better than I did, then I would get mad then. If you did any of the songs you did better.
Oh, Lord. I mean,
that's a challenge for you.
I know. Ooh, seriously. I don't know. I'll have to think about that. I don't know how I feel about that. Yeah, I mean, they're fun. I love, like I said, I love. I've been seeing his band since like 2013 and all that too, and I like a lot of the songs that he's written too, and some of the covers. Some of the covers that we have, they cross over. Like we do some of those in our band too. And so it's just fun to like sit down and we learn some of these songs and. Like sometimes we're watching videos on YouTube, like all together as a band, and we're like, all right, no, run it back. No, run it back. No, run it back. try to learn the parts. So it's fun.
There you go. And what is RGB that you have coming up when Garcia's birthday this year, I guess?
Oh, that's a local guy, Rob Glassman. He's like the biggest Deadhead aficionado I've ever met in my entire life. I like the Dead, but he's beyond. that dude loves the Dead. So every time I have some free time, I'll come play with him too. And he's the master of trying to create unique set lists that haven't already been done and all that too. Try to bring new life into the songs and all that. So.
Right. Now, are we going to tour behind the album?
I mean, weekend warrior stuff, I would say, is the plan. Regional. Right. Definitely want to explore some new venues and that kind of stuff too. And
now you should drag yourself out and do a Dead and Company after show in Vegas. Right off going to Vegas for a weekend.
Would they announce how many shows did they announce at the Sphere? What are they doing?
24, 8 weeks of 3 shows. And it's very interesting. Let's diverge here. It says that each weekend will have 3 unique set lists. And the way that reads to me is they're only going to do 3 set lists every weekend. And it's going to be the same thing week in and week out.
Interesting.
I'm just wondering, like Fish is playing there, how do you do all those visuals at the money that it costs to do the videos and have it completely audible? We can call any song we want. You have to pare down the pool and say it's going to be this song because we want to pair the visual for Split Open Melt with Split Open and Melt,
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Yeah, I'm not going. I don't like Vegas for one, and I know I'd fall. I've seen the pictures of how steep that place is in there. It's like vertigo waiting.
It looks great, but yeah, that's a lot of money.
That is a lot of money. It is a lot of money. So what's up with Max Creek these days?
Oh, still going. Still going. We have a couple ideas. We're thinking about a studio album, which we haven't done in decades. We've released a lot of live stuff, but no studio albums. And so Bill Carbone and I are kind of producing a studio album for the band, sort of. Or trying. We're going to try anyway and see what happens.
Any tour? Any touring?
I mean, it's a challenge to get the band out the door at all, really. We've been hitting Colorado every year. We're skipping this year, but with the last few years we hit Colorado, and that's fun and everything. But we're all old. It's hard on everybody to do these things, So there'll probably no real, like getting the bus and tours, but
you should do the Max Creek Festival. Make everyone come to you.
Well, we did Camp Creek.
Right.
The past couple of years, we skipped last year, but yeah, and that does work.
Right, that's the way to do it. People want it.
It's a great spot for it too. It's at a beautiful campground, like right near the casino now too, and yeah, that's a great spot. Really is.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It's funny. Me and my friends and I will mention you all the time, seeing you way back in olden times, and I'm like, yeah, I think they're still together. People are like, nah, and I'm like, yeah, I think they are still together.
Oh yeah, we are. It's funny because Max Creek doesn't really tour, but I tour with Mike pretty often, and we go out to the West Coast, and we'll be in, San Diego or San Francisco or whatever, and people come up and say, "Dude, I used to see you at Lupo's in the '80s." Like, oh my god, yeah. Yep.
I don't want to think about it. So how's it touring with Mike? That's fascinating. I've always found that fascinating that you guys hooked up.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting project. It's really, we started writing together back in 2009, I would say. And the last 3 or 4 Mike albums were mostly collaboration between me and him. I would say the one that just came out actually has the least influence. The 3 before that were hit, they were all 50-50 songwriting or whatever. And so it took like 3 or 4 years to get the first album going, but during that time he and I kind of developed this process of how we write together, and so we kind of like get together for a weekend and we write all these musical sketches or whatever, and then Wednesday nights we Zoom or Skype or whatever and work on lyrical ideas and and arrangement ideas and kind of like finalize everything, so after the first one we were able to write another album pretty quickly after that, using that kind of, in fact after that we wrote like 17 songs for an album, and when we got done with it, Mike was like, no, I have other ideas, and then we wrote like 17 more, and those are the ones that actually came out on the A Go-Go album. So that's fun.
It's tough when you write something, by the time it comes out, usually you have moved past that,
Yep, it's true. It's true. But then there's the whole like, okay, well, we've gone into the studio and we've recorded this. We've had excellent engineers and producers, and the album sounds a certain way. And then you have to tour behind it, and it's like, okay, how are we going to reproduce this all live or whatever? So that's another significant challenge as well. And that works out. It's really it's good. It's a good group of people that work well together and help Mike kind of enable his vision of what the band is. So it's cool. And so in doing that, I've definitely learned a lot about writing and learned a lot about studio stuff, and it's definitely been an educational thing for me.
What is it like to hear Trey play guitar stuff that you wrote?
That's pretty awesome. It was like the first time, like I went to Great Woods, what used to be Great Woods. I don't even know what it's called now. To see Fish, and they played 555, which I have a songwriting credit for. It was so hard not to turn around to people and go, I wrote this.
They used to do the Backyard Boogie Blues, right? That was your song.
Yeah, he might got in trouble for that.
Yeah, many, many years ago. That's funny. Good for him for getting in trouble. We like a rebel.
Oh yeah, no doubt. Not the first time.
Right.
Won't be the last.
Yeah, I was just about to say that.
So what is your next, John? What's next for the band? What are you thinking beyond the album?
I definitely want. Playing out more. I think we're gonna, I have a bunch of new songs actually that I'm working on. I'm trying to.
The next 17.
Yeah, that's right. But those will need to be road tested. And
what about the documentary though?
Yeah, I have a 3-part documentary that I'm working on, capturing the hilarious hijinks that is the studio. We were talking at our last session. I was like, dude, there's so much stuff that I had to like sift through. But and there's nothing horrible. We honestly, and I'm sure
some of it's horrible. Some of it's horrible.
Some of it's horrible. Well,
so you're making your own get back.
We had fun. That's really what it boils down to. We had a lot of fun, and I think it shows. So
nice. Your very own get back there, huh?
Mm.
I'm a big fan of that. I've watched that more than I care to say.
I've watched it 3 times.
Yeah,
I've watched it 3 times.
It's
unbelievable. It's so good.
And it's so long. Watching him come up with "Let It Be" on the spot, and I'm like, that song did not exist 5 minutes before that. And
it's unbelievable. It's like 6 hours long, right, or something like that.
Yeah. It's 3 2.5-hour episodes.
That's right. Yeah.
It's definitely All Day Sunday or something.
I watch that thing, and then I come down here and I'm like so motivated and psyched up and like, inspired. And then I start playing stuff and I go, fuck, I'm not the Beatles. This is terrible.
I've done that too.
Paul. I want to be Paul when I grow up. Oh my!
And then I'm like, he's doing Get Back, and then I look at my wife. I'm like, it takes me fucking 3.5 days to come up with 2 lines. This dude's just like, oh, I got the song, I think.
People do not realize how hard it is. The album's independent, going to be independently released.
Yeah, most likely. Unless magic happens, but
right. And what is it, that entails? What, you putting it up on Bandcamp? Or are you going to actually try to do physical copies?
I'm gonna do less physical copies than I did the last album. There's this closet that's right behind me here. I think if I open it, it's gonna be like a scene from like a cartoon. Like they're all gonna fall and hit me in the face. There's like 200 copies of our last album, like still floating around. Nobody. When I met Scott and we started hanging out, I came up to him and I was like, "Yo, I made you a mix." And he takes it and he's like, "I don't even have a CD player."
Yeah, like what am I supposed to do with this?
It's like, wow, thanks for taking my gift, man. Seriously.
My kids always give me a hard time because I have like 10 boxes full of tapes and CDs in the bedroom just stacked along the wall. And they're like, "Why? You're a hoarder." I'm like, I spent my life collecting that stuff. I'm not a hoarder. It's my history.
Yep.
I saw my first Dead tape from '87 that I got kicking around. I mean, it's fantastic. You got to do that. All right. Well, that's good. Do you have anything else you want to throw out?
I don't know. No, I guess, like I said, we're gonna be recording, a bunch more live stuff, of course, too, and our bass player mixes a lot of those stuff. So,
How about this? How about this? When you record something, is there a disconnect for you when you listen back to when you walk off stage? How you feel about the performance?
Yeah, like every time I'm like, "Oh, that was horrible," and then I listen back, and usually I'm like, "All right, it wasn't as bad." I mean, I'm sure you can attest to this too. Like you build things up so much more in your head. You think it was horrible. Most of the time, people can't really, unless they're you have like jazz musicians watching you. It's usually not as bad as you think. But I guess you're your own worst critic.
Right.
Yeah, I learned a long time ago that what I think of the show is not what everybody else thinks of the show. And so people would come up and say, "Oh, that was awesome." And I go, "Blah, it sucked. It was horrible," or whatever, And then I kind of finally realized that, and through the experience of listening back to one of my own shows, like, "Oh, that wasn't horrible like I thought." And so now people say, "Oh, the show's awesome," and no matter what I think, it's like, thanks.
That's always the right answer.
Yeah.
If you are enjoying All That Jam, please like and subscribe to our social media channels at All That Jam Pod on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, or visit our website, allthatjampod.com. Make sure to sign up for our email list and tune in every week for new episodes.
Also, look for full interviews on our YouTube channel. And remember, stay beautiful, but don't stay underground too long.